Welcome back to Tybalt's Apprentice, and we are here in the Pain Lab again with Savage. Happy to have you back, dude.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. It was a lot of fun. We got a lot of good feedback out of the last time we got together, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
I'm absolutely looking forward to it again. Something seems to be a little missing there. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, decided to take the beard off. It got a little crazy at work, and it was getting a little stressful, so it was hard to upkeep. So I was like, just shave it off.
that's that's what I did right up here. Was I decided just so, there you go,
Yeah, I
nice.
did both. I took care of all of it in one big swoop, so I didn't have to worry about it for a couple weeks.
Nice, nice. That is not a requirement of being on the show for anybody else that's watching it. Just so you know, you don't have to match. If you do, that's a thumbs up. But anyhow, what I wanted to have you back specifically to talk about was the last time you were on here, you talked about it was your nest tender commander that we talked about, Alapalani.
Yep.
And you made a statement in there about taking what I thought of as a potentially game ending scenario, and you completely flipped it into an absolute winning script. And if you want to go see that, that's in the other video. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but it occurred to me at that point, like I really wanted to kind of touch base on how you think about the game of Commander. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions that I jotted down here and stuff. I'm not going to read them off, but let me just ask you, when you go to Commander night or when you prepare for the game, what's your thought process when you're starting out to go to Commander?
So I used to be all about like winning, and I had a winning mentality about I was a very competitive person growing up, so I wasn't given any wins. I had to earn them. But as I've gotten to play this game, it's become more apparent to me that it's not necessarily about winning the game as much as it is about sitting down, having fun with friends, just reading the room, seeing everybody's like attitudes, how everybody's playing the game. Some people play really competitively, some people play laid back. So
Sure.
I kind of let that first game for the night gauge how I'm going to uh, play the rest of the night with the rest of my decks, or those lines of like play. Like if I'm going to play like sweaty, or if I'm just going to play more like niche cards that people have never heard of just to get like cool reactions out of people. But when I sit down for a game of Commander, my whole game plan is to try to escape of what's going on in the real world, and just try to have a good time, relax. It's something I look forward to at the end of working every week. So,
Well, that kind of carries into the second thing that I was going to ask you about or discuss with you, because you had said something about playing your weakest deck first. Now, my argument against that, and it doesn't hold true all the time or whatever, and I'm absolutely flexible about this myself, but the initial argument or the way that it was explained to me was you always play your strongest deck first because you may not get another game that night or whatever. The person telling me that though was I don't mean it as an insult, but like they're more of a sweaty competitive player. My personal philosophy is a little bit more along the lines of what you were saying, where you maybe play a weaker deck to start with. So I was going to ask you about that. What are your thoughts on that? Now, you kind of answered a little bit, I think, by saying that you played the game a lot and your attitude has changed. But what else can you tell me about that?
so for me, I always start off with the lesser of the competitive decks that I have, just to gauge basically how everybody's playing at the table. I read a lot of I get a lot of information from everybody around the room, how they play, what their commanders play like, what kind of in-game habits they have, whether they like to be a political player or whether they like to keep to themselves and just do actions in the game. I'm very observant, so it's easy for me to read the room really fast, and usually it's about as long as just one game. I get as much information as I need to know what kind of decks to play in the future with those people if I plan on playing more games in that evening.
Okay. So, is that a skill you think you've acquired over the series of games, or have you like always been observant like that?
I've been pretty observant growing up and like just playing the game of Commander. I've learned a lot from the time that I started playing the game in like the 15 years of Commander that I've been playing. But
Hmm.
I do believe that I have that advantage from playing so much. And it's not something that I had immediately when I first started playing the game. And it's something that I've learned as years have gone on to be able to absorb that information, especially if I'm just visiting out of an area that I've never been to, just trying to drop into an LGS and play a game of Commander or a couple games of Commander for the evening.
Okay. So, with that, when you do that, do you think that's come from, I'm going to assume, a long history of winning or a long history of playing the game? Has it kind of spiked for you, or has it been a bell curve?
So I learned early on that fast mana gives you a significant advantage playing commander against people that don't have access to those things. And I'm glad that I figured that out before it became a problem. But it eventually did become a problem to the point where I would get attacked first every game, no matter what. But I would be lying if I said that I've had more wins than losses in my time playing the game of Commander. I'd probably put my ratio somewhere around 40% of my games are wins at this point.
That's still great. Yeah.
Yeah,
An average would be like 25% or whatever. But I certainly know about that getting attacked first. But then I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. And it's like, well, I did choose to be the apprentice of the most hated planeswalker there is. So, I'll play that villain. I'll play that heel role if I have to.
yeah,
So
exactly.
that's fine. Not offended by that these days. In fact, I'm happy and I kind of expect it. So um, when it comes down to the game of Commander, you touched on a little bit, I think, with fast mana, but what is there that I can do or anybody can do outside of specific cards or maybe just naming a few general cards? What can you do to improve your Commander game?
I would say like one of the few things I can think of off the top of my head to immediately be able to make you have more of a higher chance playing commander and wins
Hmm.
would definitely be mulligans. A lot of people I've noticed don't know how to mulligan, or they'll keep a greedy mulligan they shouldn't, or they'll keep a greedy hand they shouldn't. I'm
Yeah.
even guilty of it. I all day yesterday actually. I'll be honest. As a veteran as I am, I sat there and kept hands I shouldn't have kept all day. And I'm like, well, we'll see if it worked out. The last one didn't work out. And guess what? It didn't work out. I sat there and did a whole lot of nothing and didn't win a single game yesterday. But today, I was a little more careful about my mulligans. I wasn't afraid to mulligan my first one away, which I think is a number one thing I would recommend for people is to try to don't be afraid to let that first one go. If you know your deck pretty well, you could probably get a better hand to start.
Okay. So I've got a couple of questions with this, and this isn't anything that I've written down that we talked about, but what are your hard and, well, first of all, do you generally play with friendly mulligans or you try to stick to the rule of, well, in multiplayer, one free mulligan and then ditch cards? Or do you find that your play groups play with, oh, just mulligan until you get a good hand?
So we used to have that mentality where you mulligan until you get a good hand, until everyone has gotten really good at like making their curve really low in their deck and finding combo pieces. So
Mm,
now we pretty much adhere to the rules of Commander, where the first one's free, the second one, you just keep drawing seven essentially until you stop mulliganing and put that many on the bottom of your library. Some of the people I do play with that are on the lower power scale, as long as everyone around the table agrees, they can keep their seven after they find a hand to keep. The only request that I usually make is if they draw a soul ring, that they
mhm,
put it on the bottom and draw another card, because every time you mulligan that many times, you're pretty much sculpting your hand. And the chances of you finding soul ring, I'm not a mathematician by any means, but it increases your odds of finding a soul ring and making a turn one start, which gives you a significant advantage. And usually everyone's pretty understandable with that rule, and they'll put it on the bottom and then draw another card.
I think that's a fine way to do that. I hadn't thought about that before. Because I definitely feel that a lot of times people will take advantage of that if given the opportunity. And in some cases, just natural, whatever, like, why wouldn't you fish for that or whatever? I do think that I like the idea of, like I said, adhering to the rules and pitching the cards, after that first free mulligan instead of sculpting the perfect hand. Anyhow, another question that I have for you,
Yeah, shoot.
Is, and we hadn't talked about this yet, but first of all, what is your rule for mulliganing as far as what do you look for in a hand?
My rule that I'm trying to look for when it comes time for me to mulligan.
When you're set down, you're doing it, you're going to do your one free mulligan, and then you're going to pitch cards afterwards. What do you have to have in your hand to keep it?
Usually for me, it's about 3 lands. Depending on what commanders are around, if I look in the command zone, I want removal. That's usually a key piece.
Okay.
Looking for draw and looking for ramp. Those are really the only things I care about. I'm not trying to combo out as early as like turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. So combo pieces aren't necessarily something that I need to start the game. But yeah, it's usually make sure you have lands. I don't really care about curve as much as I should. I'm starting to notice in my play group and circles around me that my friends are really good at doing the curve thing now. It's something that I might have to reevaluate for my decks actually going forward. But ramp, enough lands to be able to go somewhere with it. Having each color of your lands that you need to play the game, that's also, I would say, an important part. Sure. And some kind of a draw that gets you some more card advantage early in the game.
Gotcha. That's definitely something that I know I could use a look at with a finer lens, or look at it with a little bit more, spend some time actually focused on. Another thing you said here just a few moments ago and stuff was about knowing your deck. Tell me what your process is for goldfishing.
So when I'm playtesting my deck, I'm usually looking for how well the deck can do between turns 1 through 7. I just kind of roll a dice when I'm playtesting, and I'll assume that like I get something removed off my board or whatever. I'll like number the cards on the field, and I'll roll a dice to determine what disappears when I'm goldfishing a deck. Or I'll just use my better judgment, and I'll assume the people that I play with know that Smothering Tithe is going to be a problem, and I'll average maybe 2 treasure off of it before it's gone. I think being able to see that kind of far ahead when it comes to goldfishing definitely helps. But I just like interactions and synergies with my cards. That's kind of what I look for more than anything, because I'm not sitting down to win necessarily as much anymore as I'm trying to sit down and create an awesome experience for somebody to see cards interact on my field in ways that they've never seen before.
Right. That's awesome. So the last of the questions that I have here is, what does every deck that you have in common? Aside, so I mean, the commanders, the play styles are going to be different, but what is an overarching theme that makes your deck an MTG Savage deck?
For that, for me, it's probably some kind of interaction that I'm assuming that most people have never seen before between like 2 cards. Try to make like cool interactions. Like, for example, one of my known synergies in my decks that are mill strategies is Sir Conrad and Mindcrank. Seeing people's reactions when they see those 2 cards and they start to put the 2 together, if the table hasn't already discussed it amongst each other, it's really funny to watch people think that they can try to play it out. I've had more times than I can count. People are like, "Oh, we just got to mill like 3 cards. It's only 3 damage." They don't think that when they're milling each creature, that it re-triggers Sir Conrad, which deals 1 damage around the table to each opponent, which makes them all mill 3 cards again. So in those 3 cards, if they're milling 3 more cards, that's 3, 6, 9 cards. And if any of those are creatures, then you repeat that process
Process.
for each opponent, and for each creature going to the graveyard, all opponents are losing that much life. Like, it gets really out of control really quickly, and
Not to
usually people end up scooping to it if they're
Yeah,
laughing about it, or it wins the game, something along those lines.
for sure. I was going to say not only that, but you're being denied those resources. Even if you are able to get past it somehow, you're now denied those creatures or the resources unless you've got something to deal with that strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, the next thing that well, of course, I'd love to have you back again. I'd love to do this. I don't know
Yeah,
if this will become an oncoming series, but I absolutely want to have you back again.
yeah, for sure. I
Um,
definitely want to come back.
what would you like to talk about next time you come back? Do you have any
Um,
ideas?
I think I want to try to address the problem with pub stomping in local game stores and casual games. I think a lot of the problem with this game is it's a very social game, but a lot of antisocial people play this game, surprisingly, ironically. But a lot of people don't like to sit down and talk about the game before they sit down to play a game of Commander. I think a much better experience could happen for everybody all around if everybody just sat down and talked for a good couple minutes before the game started, so everyone would know what to play, what to look what to look forward to for their game. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily at all. Like, if you play Magic and you want to play competitively, like one-on-one in standard, you can't really do that because you're trying to win. It's all about winning.
Right.
But Commander is a game that's supposed to be casual, and sure, everybody wants to win in their own way or whatever. But like, it's more or less about making sure everybody has fun. Because if we don't have people to play with at the end of the day, then this game means nothing to us. So we want more
Absolutely.
people to come back and play the game. That's what I think is more important than anything.
Definitely. Well, we'll try to delve deeper into that topic next time. We'll come
Yeah,
up
for
with some
sure.
more questions from this, no doubt, and just in general. And that will be a good topic for us to return to maybe in a couple of weeks after it's maybe not so busy for you.
Yeah, sounds good
All
for
right.
me. Sounds good for you.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for joining me. And
Absolutely.
awesome.
Had a great time, Michael. I'm looking forward to doing it again in the future.
All right. Awesome.